Hey everyone, in today's video I'm going to show you how I built a completely custom exhaust system for this LS-Swapped Jaguar XJ-S. I have made an exhaust system before. I thought this would be a great video for somebody looking to build their own exhaust system for their swap. You can see how I go about this, how I make this happen, and at the end of the video we'll be able to see how it sounds. So let's just start in the engine bay here. The manifolds are not on the car right now, but I can tell you I'm using an OEM GM manifold off of a different vehicle. Now, since I paid for that information, I don't want to give away intellectual property, but I will say this. If you look in here, you're not going to get out back there. And if you think about the V12, that had a center dump on its manifold, so it went down kind of in the middle. So now let's look at the parts we have here. So let's talk about how we're going to make it from the manifold down. We've got some bends right here. These were purchased on eBay from a seller called Performance Curve. I've used them before. This is 409 stainless steel, and when I built my Volvo, these were extremely helpful. I was able to cut them to exactly the bend or angle I needed, and then just kind of go from there. And you might be asking, why are these straight pipes polished in these natural finish? Well, it's because I bought these from a different seller, and they didn't make it clear in their item description that these were polished and not natural. So, unfortunately, I'm on time crunch. I have to use this. Forgot to add these. So we're going to start at the manifolds. We're going to kind of bend our way through, make our way down to where we have room for our catalytic converters. These are off of my donor vehicle, my 2003 Yukon XL. These are probably way better than any garbage you could buy on the internet that's universal cat. So we're going to run these because, well, it's the right thing to do, and in this state they're going to look for it, and I need them there to get a valid inspection. So that's why those are going on. All 2.5-inch pipe, by the way. We're going 2.5-inch pipe for all of this. So once we're through the catalytic converters, we're going to go to this X pipe right here. This is from Flowmaster, part number 815953. 2.5 in, 2.5 out. And what's great about these things is, like, you know, you take your pipe, slips right in. It's going to be an easy weld. Once we're through this Flowmaster X pipe, we're going to make our way to Vibrant Performance Ultra Quiet Resonators. These are part number 1141. I have one of these on the Volvo, and I think that car sounds great. So, since this is a true dual exhaust system, we have two of them, one for each side. And then, after we make it through our resonators, we're going to go to these mufflers. These are MagnaFlow 12616, 6-inch by 14-inch round mufflers. All of these are straight through things. So you might think, oh, it's going to be really loud. But I know for a fact that these do a really good job quieting things down. They take out drone, and it's just going to make it really tolerable and nice as a daily driver. And then we've got some accessories here. We have some V-band clamps from Summit Racing. We have another two from Evil Energy on Amazon because I decided to buy these later. We have some exhaust tips from Jones Exhaust. These are also purchased on Summit Racing. We've got some hanger pipe right here, and then some isolators here so we can get some hanger action going. So how are we gonna do all of this? Well, the main tools you're gonna need are a welder. This is my Lincoln Electric 140. This is gonna be just fine for what we're doing. It runs on 120 volts, so anybody can buy one of these and use one. And we're going to weld using 308L welding wire. And I'm using 7525 gas. Next thing you're going to need is one of these, an angle grinder with cutting discs and a flap disc. These break sometimes, so it's good to buy a few. You're going to want this for cutting things in certain ways, and then this to kind of smooth stuff out. But I cannot recommend this thing enough. I did some research when I built my first exhaust and chose this tool. I will try to remember to put a link to this in the description. This is a more expensive tube cutter, and what it does is it allows you to cut tubes. You can see I've already used it right here on this. So look how clean that cut is. And maybe you're good with an angle grinder. I am not that good. You could spend a bunch of time, you know, making metal dust, watch sparks fly, get all covered in stuff, and make a inferior cut with this, or you could use this thing and just make your cut that way, and that way when you go to put it against the other pipe, you can get a really nice clean weld on there. Right now, I'm gonna finish up my manifolds and we're gonna get them ready to accept the catalytic converters. Let's come underneath the car here. We're on the driver's side and we're getting some work done here. So there we are, peeking out with our bent tube and V-band clamp. I will say this, getting this part done is by far the most difficult because we're trying to clear the frame wheel and we're trying to clear the steering shaft. So getting this all to work is very tough. It's the toughest part of the entire job. It requires the most patience. So now that I've done it, I need to add an O2 sensor bung. And what I have left over from another project is this one off of a piece of 2 1/4 inch pipe. Since we're running 2 1/2, what I did is I cut this and bent it a little bit so it's more like a 2 1/2 diameter pipe. It's just, you know, open there. And we'll just add a little piece of metal to kind of seal that up. It's just an extra weld, not a huge deal. We want the O2 sensor to point up or to the side, because if it's down, that's not how it's supposed to run. And then you run the risk of it getting caught on something when you're going down the road. So we're gonna have this be up. Then we need to add our catalytic converter. These have a specific flow to them. I drew an arrow on them when I cut them off and got them ready. So we see it fits pretty nicely in this space. We don't want to go too far back because there's our neutral safety switch. It's going to melt if we get it too close. We want to be as close to the manifold as possible because the way these work is they want the gas to be very hot. So the hotter the gas is, the more effective it's going to be. So that means we're basically going like as close as possible. So I don't see this view, but maybe you do. It's fitting in there pretty well. And we see there's nothing above it either. We've got a nice heat shield right there. We've got the side of the engine, the oil filter. That's all stuff that can get hot and it doesn't really matter. So we see here that we need to go at like a little bit of an angle. We're going to need to add another bent piece of pipe right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little cut out of something and see if I can get the correct angle to come in here and make this bend for us. Then we'll add some tack welds and see how it looks. We've got a section of pipe right here with a bend in it, and we're just going to kind of go, I don't know, maybe right about here. And you know, we're on the bent part, so what's going to come out is a bend, as you can see. So then what we do is we just start kind of rotating it like this. We can add a small amount of WD-40 just to kind of help it along and preserve the life of the blade. You know, give it something to play around with, and then you get a nice smoke show when you weld. Should probably wipe it off before you weld. So yeah, I'd do like 2 rotations, then give the thing like a quarter turn. Do another 2, quarter turn. I don't even know if it's a quarter turn, I'm just kind of doing what feels natural. Like I'm cranking this thing down until I feel it kind of pushing back on me. If you've worked with metal, like putting fasteners in, you'll know like the feeling when you're about to break the tool, or like when you're not exceeding its limits. Alright, I feel it there, yep. So it doesn't want to, so it's not quite bending at the bottom there, so, or cutting I mean, so we'll just kind of tighten a little bit. And I think that's it. At the very end we can just kind of go like this, and there we have it. And there we have a perfect little bend right here. See, we got the small section there and the big section there. So let's take this under the car and see if this is going to work for us. Okay, let's work our way under here. There's been some pretty decent progress. You can already see right here, that's something. This took me a little while. Like those welds right there, that's like I said when I showed the O2 bung that I used. Just welded in a piece of metal. I took tube and I straightened it, and then just put it on top. So that's how you get that. I am not even close to a professional welder, but I'm a little bit proud of myself for some of these welds, not all of them. So I want to kind of explain the thought process behind this. We're going to do that by looking at this one over here because it's not done. So as you can see, we've got our V-band clamp kind of loosely in here. So I've got the flange bottomed out here. Here's one of my tack welds, and then we've got another tack weld right here, because what I'm trying to do is route the pipe such that this catalytic converter can live kind of like in here. I'm finding that if you put it this way, you get more room. You can get a little bit higher up. And you can see I've got like one more piece to go, per se. So I've got another little section of bend that I cut right here. And here's what you can do in this state. So you see how you can kind of rotate this? Look how that changes your angle of where your pipe is about to go. So this is what you're doing. You're just kind of taking that, you're twisting it to see where you want it to go. And then not only that, if you take your second bend and try twisting it, like, you can go all kinds of different places with this. So really this is just a geometry problem. It's a geometry challenge, if you will. And you just kind of fine-tune this until you get the angle you need for what you're trying to do. Here's why you still need your angle grinder with the cutting disc. So I just made a cut. What I started with was one of those bends that we had under there, and I took a Sharpie and I kind of started kind of close to the top here, and then moved my way down to like the middle of it right here. And what that did is it gave me a very sharp angle in the turn, because that's what I'm trying to get. So there it is before with the original metal, and there's my new sharp angle. But another thing to do is hold on to this, because what you might want to do later is put it on some pipe, and then look at that, boom, you've got yourself a nice sharp bend that you can work into some stuff later. So save everything till you're done. I've got the clamp tightened and I've got the manifold tightened as well, because we want those to be in their final spot before we do anything else back here. So as we can see, catalytic converter is exiting. Probably a little close to the transmission. I probably should have gone a little lower, but there's only one way to find out if that's going to be an issue or not. I'll put heat wrap on the pipe, it'll be fine. So we need to, go backwards. We're going to crash into the transmission pan if we do that though. So what I did is I took one of my bends, I cut a little piece off, and then I stuck it right on here, and I was like, okay, cool. We can do something with that. Then I took another piece and just kind of went for it. I was thinking, oh, maybe I can do, one of these numbers. Not gonna work. This one's gonna go too far that way, etc. Or not right enough. But then I was like, okay, just kept trying different combinations of these pieces, and it turns out if I go like this with these pieces, it actually creates a pretty straight path out the exhaust. So you see we need to go there, we got to go all the way back there, and then we're gonna have our crossover pipe be right around our U-joint. So this is working out. I'm gonna make some marks with my paint marker, tack them on, and see what happens. Looking pretty good. So I think what I'm gonna do is check that side once it's cooled, start the car for the first time, drive it for the first time, and then back it into the driveway so I can actually work, because as you can see, this is as far as my welder goes. I'm not about to run that on an extension cord. Or, just move the car to an entirely different location that actually has space and weld it here instead. So when we left off a week or two ago, we saw that this guy was done. We got some pipe kind of making its way out. but this one didn't quite have enough time to get some pipe attached to it. This one has to sit a little bit lower just because of, you know, how things are happening over there. So what's next here? What do we got to do next? Well, that is crossover pipe. Now here is our crossover pipe. It's a Flowmaster product. And the reason I wanted this one is because when I make the pipe sections coming off of here and here, you know, we gotta go straight to an extent, but then we gotta turn at a certain point, and you'll see that all the cheap ones on eBay, they have these two inlets or outlets coming out straight. So what I'd have to do is I'd have to bend in and then back straight again. It's like, okay, that's like double the bending. I have to do double the welding. It's like, what if I only had to bend once, right? So with this, I only have to bend once. When it sits like right here or so, I just need to bend in right there, bend in right there. Only about 45 degrees needed on each end. Actually, it's probably about 40 because this is not exactly a 90-degree angle. Looking here, I see that my transmission mount is kind of in the way right here. You know, I've got this kind of up as high as I can so we're not hanging too low. If the pipe wants to come out right here-ish, this ends up being a pretty good place for the crossover. So I think what I'll do is put it here. A quick update. I've got some pipe coming straight out. This one I actually got to bend by using a flap disc on the end of this pipe. And I just kind of made a little flat section in there, kind of angled it so that when I weld it, it's coming out at an angle. I didn't need to use any of my bend. It was also a very mild bend I needed to make, and this makes it so it's just one weld instead of two. So that's helpful. As you can see, we are tucked right up in there, looking really nice. Pretty happy with that. So I was working on this one, and I realized I had some extra pipe here that had some bend in it. And I was like, huh, if I put that on there, it actually works out perfectly. Like the bend is exactly where I need it to be, so I can clear the cross member. I'm gonna put this X pipe right here. And I did some research on, like, you know, what is the best location for an X pipe, and there's a lot of opinions out there. Let's just put it that way. I have this welded onto here, and this welded onto here. Because what I'm trying to do is get my turns just right with my crossover pipe. When I get my bend in there and I put it right here, it can come out a number of different ways, you know. So what I'm trying to do is get it just right. So I've got this piece welded onto here, and then what I can do is I can actually take the pipe and this slips right in here. I want this to live about here-ish. And you know, I just kind of twist this until I've tuned the exit just right. You know, I'm showing this one for the visual aid right now, but what I'm actually going to have to do is do this one first, because I've got to make a tack back here. I'm going to get this angle just right, then we're going to add in the X pipe and wrap it up right here. Let's go. So I'm looking here, and you know, it's not quite sitting centered with the car, or straight even. So I could probably correct that if I really wanted to, but I think I'm just gonna weld it because no one's ever looking this closely. This is not a show car, it's a driver, and I don't want to redo it. It's gonna be functional just like this. So what I'll do is I'll just hold this here, I'll put my tacks in, and then the crossover will be attached. Yeah, not too bad. Looking pretty okay under here. So, yep, now it's just exit out of here. And next up, over here, we're gonna put the resonators. So what I'm actually gonna do next is I'm going to drop this assembly, do some welding on it, and just kind of see how does this thing fit, you know, because we need to think about getting this in and out of the car. We attach at the V-band clamps up by the catalytic converters up in front, but then we need to add a second set of clamps back here somewhere so we can make this manageable when we're servicing the vehicle. Like if we have to drop the transmission, exhaust has to come out, so you better make it so you can actually get it out. So I'm going to see how it goes getting this out and putting it back in, and that'll determine whether I put my V-band clamps before or after my resonators once I get them in. And we also need to check for just fitment in general, because you know things are going to shift a little bit when we do our full welds. This is the time where we want to make sure that we can do something about that if there's something wrong with them. Okay, got it out. Here's what it looks like so far. O2's on this one, but it's on the manifold on the other side, you know, but that's just kind of how this is coming together. We see our pipes right here. All the tacks feel pretty solid coming up to here. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and fully weld this. Alright, so as you can see, that is back in the car. It's completely welded now, so that's a really good thing. Now we're looking at what we're going to do about mounting the resonators, the Vibrant Performance resonators. You can see right here, based on this shielding, this is where the original Jaguar resonator went. So one thing to keep in mind about this car in particular is that the pipes for the exhaust used to go into the rear cage right here. They'd kind of go up and through this thing and then back out somewhere over here, and then your muffler would go up in there. So that's not how we're going to do it with this particular one. For this one, we're going to have the resonator like in here, right? But then what we're going to do is we're going to come out and come across where the lower control arm meets the bottom of the rear suspension cage. So we're going to have a pipe going right here, and this is what a lot of LS-Swap people have done. They go right through here because we're using larger 2.5 diameter pipe. The Jaguar used like a 2-inch diameter, maybe even smaller, I don't remember exactly. Basically it was small enough to fit up through here and come out, you know, and then go to the muffler. But 2.5, too big, and too much of a pain in the butt to make that happen. I don't feel like it. So I'm just thinking, like as I think about where I'm going to place this, how do I take the route from the outlet of this thing all the way to here? You know, can I make this bend? And if I put it back far enough, I can. But then once we're back here, it's like, okay, I can't go here because I'm going to run into that, so I got to come in a little bit. But then I'm not completely under this, which, you know, this is going to be just fine. So basically what I've decided is I'm going to come in kind of like this. You know, I'm going to run into this, and run into that, and then just kind of come down, let it float kind of like this, and this is where I want my resonator to be. Because I played around with pipe, I can make this bend over here, and then you know, that can come meet up over here. Next thing I'm wanting to consider is hangers. We have not played with any exhaust hangers yet. Well, I mean, look at that. That's pretty solid. It's I don't know if you can see the vibration in the camera, but you know, there's not much there. This is very strong, but you know, cantilever. Force times distance equals torque, so you know we're not going to want to have these guys hanging off of that. So what I'm going to do is I'll install hangers kind of at the back end of the resonator on each side. And if we look at the car, Jaguar was kind enough to leave us some studs. And I like the idea of this entire assembly having some hangers back here, because what I can do when I take this out next is I can kind of install the hangers right here since they're a little bit easier, and then getting the V-bands in, this will be suspended back here and it might line up a little bit nicer. It was very, very challenging getting that back in to the car without any help. So I think that if I have these two hangers here with rubber isolators, when I take this apart, I can undo my V-bands, and then I can slip them out of the isolators back here. Now here's a technique I've been waiting to show off. This is a trick with blue painter's tape or masking tape. Whatever's not going to leave a lot of adhesive when you take it off. So And we're trying to align the resonator back here, but I want to have the pipe be a little bit closer than I can really handle with two hands. So what you can do is you can take some blue painter's tape like this, just kind of start it on your attached section of pipe, and then see I've got this one pre-made, which if you can put a bend straight outside of the car and get your 3 tacks on here, makes it really helpful, because then look, you can do you can aim it really easily, only one moving part. So we want this going like right about here. I know this is too long. I want to know where I need to shorten it, so got the blue painter's tape on. Now we just kind of wrap it around like so, and boom, there it is. So now what I can do is we can take the resonator, kind of hold it where we want it to be, where we want it to live. We see that we'd like it to be a little bit more toward the front of the car. And I think if we were to do that, we'd want to take off like maybe an inch on this thing, and then we've got a bend right here. Heck, maybe we don't have to do anything. Maybe we can just no. I still want this to be closer to the front. I want this face of the resonator to be kind of coincident with this face. So now that I've got my measurement in mind, I'll take my paint marker and I'll just put a line, I don't know, there. And that's how much I need to shorten this pipe. And then to get it off, pretty easy. Just undo the tape, if you can figure out where you left it. Another thing that really helps with the positioning of these larger components is if you have an extra set of jack stands. You can put one on this end and one on this end, and it'll hold it right up. But I no longer have an extra set of jack stands. I used to, and I kind of wish I did right now. But I'm gonna get by just holding it with my hand. And then once we're ready to actually weld it onto here, we'll probably use the floor jack to hold it up, just so we have, we don't have this flexing so much, because it will flex more and more as we go back, right? So there's my floor jack helping me position this resonator. We can see I've got some tack welds in place for kind of getting it up to where it is. So now we're at the point where it's getting a little heavy here. And we need to think about installing our first hanger. So I think I mentioned those studs earlier. I've got a piece of scrap metal. I drilled 2 holes in it, found the right nuts, and now we've got like some metal kind of hanging out here. What we're looking at using is just some generic exhaust hangers, and I've got some stainless rod here. Yeah, so kind of like this, right? We got a rod going across the top of this end right here. And then we just weld this other piece to our piece of scrap metal. But we're not going to do it like this. We got to keep in mind that we want this to be kind of in the, upright state like this. So that when we let go, it's going to sit kind of like this, but still be kind of raised up a little bit, so we don't have as much pressure on those V-band clamps. Because like all this vibration right here, this is all just massive cantilever going straight to those V-band clamps. So we want to be mindful of that and make sure we get the, and make sure we get this right. So I'm going to put the floor jack back underneath. I've got it the same height as before. We're just going to lift it up a little bit, and then I'll start doing my tacks for the hanger. Alright, so check it out. There it is. She's on the hanger. Not an ideal design, obviously, but I think it's going to do pretty well for us. You can see the hanger is taking up the slack and doing the thing. Alright, not too bad looking. So now what we got to do is kind of come down a little bit and get underneath the suspension cage right here. Make our way out to the mufflers and we'll be done. So first, how about we take a listen to what it sounds like with the resonators in these tack welds. I'm curious. so fun problem here. This clamp right here is leaking a lot. And when I put my hand under it when the engine was running, I felt quite a bit of air coming out of it. So this is not sealing properly, which means something is probably in the way. Maybe I welded too far over the flange or something. I don't know yet, but this needs to come down for full welding back here anyways. So I'm going to examine that as I take this apart. Also going to try out my design. I'm going to drop these two first and then drop the back, and maybe that'll make my life a little bit easier, but we'll have to wait and see. Here it is, welded up. Yeah, welds are okay in places, terrible in other places, but we won't talk about that. I think I know what's wrong with my V-band clamp. I think it's this metal right here. It shouldn't be sticking out that high, and when you look at it, I think it might be interfering. So I'm just gonna grind this down with the flap disc, make sure that it's smooth all the way around the flange here and on the flange that's actually on the manifold, and hopefully that solves the issue of the clamp not fully engaging. Yeah, like that. Thank you, flap disc. The hangers I had some real garbage tack welds on, but now I've got something a little bit better, I guess. Then over here we've got our brackets. Again, got a better weld on there. I hope that weld is as good as it looks, but you know, we have all this material right here that needs to come off. Same with the other side, so I'm going to cut that off, smooth it out with the flap disc so there's no sharp burrs. And then I can put the exhaust back in. I'll take a time lapse for that. It should be pretty entertaining. Boy, you know what I'm thankful for? Not having to do this in the driveway. I'm so thankful. I'm thankful for my dry floor. I know I was complaining about wanting a lift earlier. Nah, I am thankful for my dry floor. I fixed the V-band issue, so now it actually sounds okay. I've started and stopped it like multiple times tonight. I'll just do it one more time. Much quieter up there now. And down here I'm sure it's very boomy for you. This GoPro really likes the bass when it's recording, so I'll give you one rev and then I gotta call it a night. Sounding a lot like a Corvette, gotta say. I wonder why. Okay, continuing the design. So we want to be able to get this out of the car easily, right? So that means we probably have to put the V-band clamps right here so we can attach to our muffler sections. They're gonna go, you know, over the axle or under. So the best way to do that is to put them right here. Because remember, the way we're gonna get this out is we remove the front ones, let this kind of pivot along the hanger. And if this is going to pivot, well, we want this to be able to pivot also. So if there's something sticking out way like this, you know, it's going to interfere with things. We're going to put the V-bands right here. And here's a brief pro tip for the V-bands. Since the V-band inner diameter is 2.5 to fit the 2.5 pipe, what we want to do is make sure that we put a little section of pipe in between so we can get these to fit nicely inside of here. Now, I have some more cleaning up to do because I've got some welds that are kind of poking through from when I put the hanger in. This might fit in here better. Yeah, that fits in there a lot better. So that's what we want right there. But the biggest pro tip I have of all is when you're tacking these little pieces in, make sure you're holding the piece down into the V-band clamp, because what's going to happen is this one tack is going to cool down, it's going to lift it out on the opposite side, it's going to kind of try to pull it in this way, and you won't have a level pipe inside of your V-band clamp. So make sure when you're tacking, you're kind of holding it down with one hand, or you put it in a vise like a normal person, and just give it your 3 tacks, 120 degrees apart. Alright, I've just kind of plumbed the first muffler using everything we've learned so far. So, I've got a little tack right there. I've got my V-band clamp tightened down so I know where this is going to be. And then our new pieces, they're held in with the painter's tape right now, all the way up to the MagnaFlow muffler. And I made sure you could see the brand really clearly when you look under the car, because that gives it an extra 10 horsepower. And then right here we see the tip is coming out pretty much center right there. I've got my hanger right here, just a piece of rod going through there, and I welded it actually. I made an angle. I bought 2 pieces of straight hanger from Summit, and I was like, that's too hard to bend with what I have, so I just chopped it and welded it into a 90. I'll put a tack in there, and then we've got a little cheap exhaust tip, and that'll just go right here. This is about what it looked like stock, just not quite as stupid. I don't know if you've seen the stock muffler exhaust tips on these. I think they just look stupid. I don't understand them. This looks much cleaner, much nicer in my opinion. And this is just a cheap summer racing part. Not too bad. Looking pretty okay. The tip's just down there with tape right now because I want to make sure that weld looks really good, because that's the one you'll be able to see. But yeah, we're coming out to about there. I think that's about how it was stock. And with the tacking and tape thing, you just kind of wrap your tape so that you can get your seams on the bottom side, then pull each one up, add a tack on both sides, and then that's pretty much how you get that. And another thing I was mindful of was I wanted this to be one solid piece right here, because when you look at the car from behind, it's aesthetically pleasing to see that bend right there and not a weld like in your face. And yeah, you can see it up toward the side there, but like once you get to about here, see, that's what you're looking at. So I wanted that to be solid pipe, make it look intentional. Here's the final product. The tips are almost the same, but when you weld, sometimes things bend a little bit, they warp or whatever, and well, that happened here. Also, I did not take my own advice. One V-band clamp over there, I didn't tack it enough, and when I welded it, it bent, and I had to redo this section for this muffler. So that's one of the reasons the right side sticks down a little bit lower. It's because I had to go through a little bit of stuff to get it to work again. Got the exhaust tip here, hanger, stealth hanging out in there. Get it? You can barely even tell. I started going a little fast in that last take, so real briefly I want to just talk about what did I do when I realized that I had tacked this or welded this in a way where my V-band clamp no longer lines up. So think about it this way. If I make a change right here, it's got to be pretty dramatic, because the distance between here and my V-band is like a few inches. Or if I make a change back here, it's going to be pretty dramatic. Like a little tiny movement is going to result in a lot of change up here. And that's exactly what I did. This weld right here did not used to be here. And what I did was I decided, okay, this is a far enough distance from my V-band where if I make a cut right here, it's probably going to make a fairly significant difference. And it won't affect things too much up here because I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. So I'm going to show you what happened. Let's kind of take the camera, let's go under it and come over here. Look at this line right here. You can see that this does not line up with this anymore. All it took to get this right was making a cut right here and then just kind of putting them back up against one another and seeing, oh, if this rotates a little bit or this rotates a little bit, and you can tell I only rotated like a few degrees based on this line right here from the actual pipe extrusion or whatever process. All I had to do was twist these two sections a little bit further apart. I just cut right here, put them together until they lined up right. And that's how I solved that problem. It ended up being really easy. And I'm making this point now because I don't think I touch on it enough in the video. Like if you run into a problem, I don't really tell you what you're supposed to do when you run into that problem. So here's a good example of what to do. Just make a cut somewhere in your pipe section and then kind of line it up, see what's going on, so you can get good fitment between your two ends, and then just do what you got to do accordingly. Maybe you need to add something into here. Maybe this is too short now and you need to add in a little bit of material. 2 welds, not a huge deal. Maybe you got to add in a bend, not a huge deal, because you've got a bunch of scraps from earlier. Like I talked about, you're holding on to everything. That's the best example I have here. Just something to keep in mind when you do it. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. I think it looks almost stock. If you didn't know, you'd probably think that this is stock. That's kind of what I'm going for with these tips here. Nothing fancy, nothing huge, nothing ridiculous. Just pretty basic. Looking like stock, but it's not if you know what you're looking at. So that is it. Thank you so much for watching. After this outro, we'll have some videos of the car with like just the X-pipe, then just the resonators, and then just the mufflers, and then a drive-by video also. I'll just warn you, there's a lot of leaks along the way in the exhaust. There's still a leak right now. You might hear that in the drive-away video, but it's a lot better than it used to be. So enjoy those sound videos, and I'll see you in the next one. By the way, before we go, you should know that the next video in this series is about the air conditioning. We're going to build the air conditioning for this car basically from scratch. We've got an awesome sponsor sponsoring that video, so you're not going to want to miss that. It's going to be an incredible video that explains something that's not terribly well understood. Something I had to learn for this thing. I built the AC from scratch for this car with the help of this sponsor, and that's why I reached out to them, is I wanted them to, get some recognition and have me provide them with, something to get them a little bit more business, because I feel strongly that they're a pretty good company. So, okay, I'll see you in the next one. This cold start with just a crossover pipe and a few tubes leading out of it. No mufflers, no resonators. This is just resonators. First start with mufflers. Only thing missing is tips.